Now, what was our best way of bringing that about? To prevent you from having any suspicion of us when we approached you. For you're a stranger here, and because of that, certain to be full of suspicion, full of justifiable suspicion. And besides, we're despised by everybody, and you must be influenced by the general opinion, particularly through your fiancé. So how could we put ourselves forward without quite unintentionally setting ourselves up against your fiancé and so offending you? And the messages which I had read before you got them. Barnabas didn't read them. As a messenger, he couldn't allow himself to do that. Seemed at the first glance obsolete and not of much importance, yet took on the utmost importance inasmuch as they referred to you to the superintendent. Now, in these circumstances, how were we to conduct ourselves towards you? If we emphasized the letter's importance, we laid ourselves under suspicion by overestimating what was obviously unimportant, and in pluming ourselves as the vehicle of these messages, we should be suspected of seeking our own ends, not yours. More, in doing that, we might depreciate the value of the letter itself in your eyes, and so disappoint you, sore against our will. But if we didn't lay much stress on the letters, we should lay ourselves equally under suspicion. For why in that case should we have taken the trouble of delivering such an unimportant letter? Why should our actions and our words be in such clear contradiction? Why should we in this way disappoint not only you, the addressee, but also the sender of the letter, who certainly hadn't handed the letter to us so that we should belittle it to the addressee by our explanations? And to hold the mean without exaggeration on either side. In other words, to estimate the just value of those letters is impossible. They themselves change in value perpetually. The reflections they give rise to are endless, and chance determines where one stops reflecting. And so even our estimate of them is a matter of chance. And when on top of that there came anxiety about you, everything became confused. And you mustn't judge whatever I said too severely. When, for example, as one happened, Barnabas arrived with the news that you were dissatisfied with his work, and in his distress, his professional vanity was wounded too, I must admit, resolved to retire from the service altogether. Then to make good the mistake, I was certainly ready to deceive, to lie, to betray, to do anything, no matter how wicked, if it would only help. But even then, I would have been doing it, at least in my opinion, as much for your sake as for ours. There was a knock. Olga ran to the door and unfastened it. A strip of light from a dark lantern fell across the threshold. The late visitor put questions in a whisper and was answered in the same way, but was not satisfied and tried to force his way into the room. Olga found herself unable to hold him back any longer and called to Amalia, obviously hoping that to keep the old people from being disturbed in their sleep, Amalia would do anything to eject the visitor. And indeed, she hurried over at once, pushed Olga aside and stepped into the street and closed the door behind her. She only remained there for a moment. Almost at once she came back. So quickly had she achieved what had proved impossible for Olga. Kay then learned from Olga that the visit was intended for him. It had been one of the assistants who was looking for him at Frida's command. Olga had wanted to shield Kay from the assistant. If Kay should confess his visit here to Frida later, he could, but it must not be discovered through the assistant. Kay agreed. But Olga's invitation to spend the night there and wait for Barnabas he declined. For himself he might perhaps have accepted, for it was already late in the night, and it seemed to him now, whether he wanted it or not, he was bound to this family in such a way that a bed for the night here, though for many reasons painful, nevertheless, when one considered this common bond, was the most suitable for him in the village. All the same, he declined. The assistant's visit had alarmed him. It was incomprehensible to him how Frida, who knew his wishes quite well, and the assistants, who had learned to fear him, had come together again like this, so that Frida didn't scruple to send an assistant for him. Only one of them, too, while the other had probably remained to keep her company. He asked Olga whether she had a whip. She hadn't one, but she had a good hazel switch, and he took it. Then he asked whether there was any other way out of the house. There was one through the yard. Only one had to clamber over the wall of the neighboring garden and walk through it before one reached the street. Kay decided to do this. While Olga was conducting him through the yard, Kay tried hastily to reassure her fears, told her that he wasn't in the least angry at the small artifices she had told him about, but understood them very well, thanked her for the confidence she had shown in him, telling her the story, and asked her to send Barnabas to the school as soon as he arrived, even if it were during the night. It was true, the messages which Barnabas brought were not his only hope. Otherwise, things would be bad indeed with him. But he didn't by any means leave them out of account. He would hold to them and not forget Olga either. For still more important to him than the messages themselves was Olga, her bravery, her prudence, her cleverness, her sacrifice for the family. If he had to choose between Olga and Amalia, it wouldn't cost him much reflection. And he pressed her hand cordially once more as he swung himself onto the wall of the neighboring garden.